We got to get on the road. SEC opener. It's going to be a great environment. Our guys are excited and had a really good practice yesterday. Anticipate great energy today. So with that, I'll open up for questions.
What was McClure's injury Saturday?
Thumb. Yeah.
Did he have surgery on it?
He did, but he was back. Actually, he was back. Had it Monday. He was back at practice yesterday. He's back out today.
He's ready to play.
Oh yeah. No, he'll play.
Do you anticipate Solely starting at end? Or?
I do. I anticipate that could happen. Again, we'll see with where we are. Jamario will not practice today, but again, he's kind of day to day right now. But not so they'll get a lot of the reps today.
How do you feel about that?
Well, I think he's a player that's has came in and I guess in January has done everything we've asked him to do and was definitely a difference maker in the spring and added some weight and bulk and some strength during the summer and has really progressed through fall camp. So him and Colin Clay and a bunch of those young guys we anticipate going to be able to play.
How about Austin Cabs, Coach?
Austin is another one much like Jamario. We'll see today. He won't work out today, but he's kind of game time decision probably with him.
Would that be Stromberg if he doesn't?
It will. Yeah, Ricky will be a part of that, be a part of the plan.
What are Austin's and Jamario's injuries?
Austin is an ankle and Jamario is his knee.
Just for both teams, how important is this one coming off the SEC season? Both teams have?
Well, I think they're all important. Every game is, and to travel on the road, especially when you consider playing on the road in this league and how hard it is to win on the road. This is a big ball game for both teams, but they're all big ball games, and so we're going to see a much improved Ole Miss team. We know that. As I said earlier, they got two fantastic offensive and defensive coordinators that have been in this situation before. They've both been head coaches, and they understand what it takes to get from week 1 to week 2 and get better, just like our staff does. And so you'll see two much improved football teams Saturday night.
Going all white in this one?
We are.
Going all white. Well, is that you wore white lids last year against Ole Miss? Is that an Ole Miss something or?
And no, I just think that's just something that we decided we wanted to do, and our players like it, and so that was the message behind it.
Mm-hmm. Have you seen better execution from the wide receivers and tight ends in the past couple practices?
Well, I mean, yesterday we had a really good practice, and guys were definitely in tune, and that. I mean, we've had good execution all through fall camp with these guys. We've got a lot of young guys that they're learning, and they'll continue to grow and get better every day. And yesterday was one of those days that they got better. Anticipate that today.
Has it been pretty normal in terms of reps distributed for a starting quarterback?
And it's our Thursday edition of On the Hill with Pat Jenkins Sports Talk Radio, coming to you each and every day here on KDSJ 479. And real quick, before we get started, I want to give a thank you to all our sponsors. Lindsay & Associates, with an office location in Fayetteville, an office location also too in Rogers. That's Locomotion also with the location just below the Northwest Arkansas Mall. Corey Beck's Custom Painting, commercial, residential. If you need it to look good, contact Corey Beck's Custom Painting. He'll definitely take care of you. And our newest sponsor, KDK's Chicken at 989 South Razorback Road. Go down and see Kathy and Keith. And like they say, it's not your mama's. Best chicken in the South. They'll have a lot of love in those plates. Chicken chunks, mac and cheese, some of the best fries, waffle cones, hot wings. What else they got, Demetrius? Peach cobbler. I mean, they got a plethora of everything. But yeah, go down and see Keith and Kathy. I'm pretty sure you'll definitely get pulled. But we came in with audio from our media availability. Chad meets with us each and every Wednesday to preview this Ole Miss football game. Big football game coming up on Saturday. I think Arkansas having not played the type of football that most fans made their way to Fed were expecting to see. I think Arkansas is going to have to come out, open up a little bit more. Don't think they showed a lot, but this week's going to be a lot different. It is your SEC opener away from home. And also, too, if you want to call in the first two segments here at the 105 and 115 hour, you can do so with any of your questions. You can reach us here at 601-7400. That'll get you in to the show for any of your comments. One of my big comments to the question of the day for me is who's this game bigger for? Is it bigger for Arkansas, or is this game bigger, a little bit bigger for Ole Miss? And I want to bring in real quick my co-host, producer, and get his takes on it. For one, I think this is really big for Arkansas. I think with that being said, I think when you hadn't won a conference game, 0-8. And you're in year two of a brand new coach, I think this is something you have to get yourself going. And I think if Arkansas were able to pull this game off, this could, do a lot for the psyche and the confidence going forward with this very, very young football team. Where are you at with that, Demetrius, on that question? Who's it bigger for, Ole Miss, or is it bigger for Arkansas?
I think you just answered it right on the head. You said Arkansas, and I have to definitely agree. Ole Miss has a track record of beating SEC schools. I almost can't remember the last SEC game Arkansas won. I think it was maybe Florida a couple of years ago.
Right.
But beat them was last year.
I think Ole Miss was the last win they had because I think they went 2-8 that year.
I thought that one was against Florida that year.
See, there was so few and far between.
Absolutely,
we can't even remember the last.
And that's exactly what I mean by this game is way more important for Chad. I won't even say the University of Arkansas. I think the longevity of Chad, because I think if he can win this game, he can get that monkey off his back as, oh, you're a high school coach and you can't win a big game. Because I think this is a big game. It's not the SEC championship, but I think as far as levels and bricks that you need to build a solid foundation for a football team, beating Ole Miss is one of them.
I think Arkansas, I think they will show a lot more offensively. I believe they ran 5 plays out of 8 different formations. And I know, that doesn't sound like much, but they did. They kept it very vanilla. And I know people don't want to hear that, but I do feel like you'll see a different offensive scheme for this Saturday as well as a different defensive scheme. I think they'll come with, I think Chiefs going to come with more exotic blitzes. Blitzed a little bit, but really only using the safeties. When he used Joe Fouché and Greg Brooks Jr. Also, too, Cam Curl came off the edge a couple times. I think you'll see a lot more of that. But this game is it could go either way, Demetrius. I think whichever team can establish control of the offensive line and the defensive lines as far as running the ball and stopping the run will have the greatest advantage, because I think if it comes into a passing game, both teams are coming in with new quarterbacks. Ole Miss comes in with a redshirt freshman, Arkansas a grad transfer, and Ben Hicks. I think it's going to come down, like I said, the control of the offensive and defensive lines. And with that being said, if you're Arkansas, you kind of feel your defensive line may have a slight edge, but really not that much of an edge. You understand what I'm saying? I think this is going to be – that's the matchup, the most intriguing matchup that I'm going to be looking at, Arkansas D-line and Ole Miss offensive line, because both teams are bringing back, somewhat quite a bit of experience to me.
So I took a little second just to go back and verify that last win. The last SEC win we had was October 28th, 2017. That was the last SEC win that Arkansas has had.
And who did they beat?
And that was Ole Miss Rebels. That was the last victory that they had. So going back to your point, I think the offensive line is the key matchup, but I also have to say the receivers, because I think this is going to be a pitch and catch game. Whoever dominates in the air is going to really win the game, because I see this. I think Arkansas has to score 30-plus points to win this game. I don't think this is going to be a game where they can score 20 and their defense wins. I think they're really going to have to put up some points in this game, and I think throughout the SEC, you're going to slowly see it develop to an offensive game. I'm just seeing so many. When I looked around the SEC and I looked at some of the potential teams, when you look at Missouri, 30-plus points, Alabama, 30-plus points, Arkansas is going to have to score some points and in a hurry because they have Colorado State next week. And we already know they have a decent offense. They're going to be able to put 30-some points on the board. So that's really what I'm looking for this year. I'm looking for a little bit more continuity between the offenses.
And I think Arkansas, with the addition, having a healthy Rakeem Boyd and a healthy Devois Whaley, I mean, you know, we weren't too far removed and realized that in that game last year down in War Memorial, those two young men were having excellent games. Not good games, but they were on pace to both go for at least 120 plus. They both went down. Rakeem went down with a tailbone injury. I believe Devois went down with an injury. You lose your quarterback in the same game, Ty Story. And I thought with those three going down, they were having such offensive success. You know, it felt like for the first time that Ty Story played in a rhythm in that ball game. And I thought the momentum shifted right before halftime when Ole Miss went down and made it 27-17 at halftime. They never were able to recover from that. You know, in my opinion, they just never were able to get it back, and the momentum kept going. And you know, as we all know how that ended up, not a very good defensive performance in the second half because I thought they were on the field entirely too much. And that's the one thing that was asked in the post game following the Portland State game of Rakeem Boyd, how excited he would be to be able to play in this game. And even when we had media availability with some of the players, I remember Cameron Curl mentioned that as well about, you know, how excited he has seen, you know, Rakeem's attitude and the bounce that he's had leading into the Ole Miss game. I think they really feel good about the game plan that's being put in from Chief on the defensive side of the ball, Craddock, and Coach Morris and staff on the offensive side of the ball. You get the addition. Chad did make a note that Cheyenne O'Grady will be back in the lineup, which leads to the next question. That opens up a lot, Demetrius, don't you think, to have a senior tight end that's up for the Biletnikoff Award as the top tight end in all of college football? He adds another dimension to this football team, I believe, offensively.
Absolutely. I think he's going to be the reason Traylon Burks, Trey Knox, and Mike Woods have the type of game that I'm expecting them to have. I feel like when you look at this receiver, and we've been hollering about this receiving core in this trio or quartet or whatever you want to call it. We've been raving about them all off season. They're so potent, and we have the ability to put up so many points. So again, this game I'm expecting 40 plus points because you have CJ O'Grady. That's off the rip. You can't tell me a linebacker in the SEC right now that can guard him one-on-one. So that's automatically a mismatch. So again, this is really going to be a telltale sign as far as what our offense can do.
Well, we're going to take a real quick break, play a little bit more of Coach Morris's media availability with us here in the media yesterday and more, and then we'll be back for all your calls. You want to get in, now's the time to do it. You can reach us here at 479-601-7400. And the question is, who's it bigger for? Is it bigger for Ole Miss? Is it bigger for Arkansas? And what else will you be looking for when they make their way down to Oxford for their SEC opener? It's On the Hill with Pat Jenkins on KDSJ 479. Let's get it.
I mean, just the way we do our practices, you know, we always get our ones and twos equal amount of reps for the most part, and not just quarterback, but at running back and at linebacker, and the way we do our 5-minute periods, what we call racks of plays. And so they're both getting substantial reps. So,
What's the full speed CJ O'Grady? What can he do for your offense?
well, I mean, I think we saw what CJ is capable of doing a year ago. Very much a playmaker. Was 255 pounds. Runs extremely well. Very athletic. I mean, a guy that can block and be a threat in the passing game. He's just creates mismatches. And we're excited to have CJ back and ready to go. He had a really good practice yesterday and anticipate that today.
So he's got a pretty big wrap on his hand. Will he wear something smaller in the game?
I don't know that. I know that it'll be a padded cast.
You ever been to Oxford for any reason?
I have. Yeah, I've been up there to a game when Jevis Sneed played there, which played for me, and I went up and watched him play a couple times.
Coach, it's going to be, I know 6:30 kick, but really a hot afternoon. As hot as it's been, I think 98 degrees. Change how you go about things, maybe subbing a little more?
Well, we always try to have a plan early in the year, a good rotation plan for humid days or heat or altitude or whatever it may be. And that's kind of customary, probably pretty much across the country with coaches. But ours will be no different. We want to get some guys in, rotate, and get them some experience early on, and we got to hydrate well this week, and we got to work hard today and finish up, today, and tomorrow is a class on grass day for us, and then we're back in a full run through on Friday.
There's freshman defensive backs.
Welcome back to our Thursday edition of On the Hill with Pat Jenkins Sports Talk Radio, as we come to you each and every day here live. When we come to you on our YouTube live page, you can check us out on the Hill LLC. You can catch us on our Facebook live page. That's On the Hill Sports Talk. You're about to be able to catch us on Spotify, and you can also catch us on iHeartRadio. But we came in with more audio from yesterday's availability with Coach Chad Morris. And real quick, before I move on, I have to give a big shout out to my nephew, a very special young man who's turned the sweet 16. So, Jordan Crane, I hope you have a blessed day, my man. Unc loves you, and live it up, man. Turn it up today, and just want to give a shout out and say happy birthday. And you have a birthday, don't you? You don't have nobody in your family that's birthday? See, I'm all about birthdays. I'm just giving out all kinds of love. But next question: matchup between Arkansas's wide receivers, Demetrius. Ole Miss's corners. Ole Miss has some very, very, very mature corners, guys that are range from 6 foot to 6'2", very physical guys. We saw that in their past weekend's game versus Memphis. Who's going to have the advantage? Now, Arkansas is coming in with a very young and inexperienced to a certain degree at that wide receiver with true freshman Burks, Knox. Corlin Jackson was out last. He wasn't out last year, but they brought him back slowly. Him being a sophomore, you have Tyson Morris, another sophomore. Mike Woods is a sophomore, and then TQ Jackson, another true freshman. With all that inexperience that Arkansas has on that side of the ball versus this experience of Ole Miss, who do you really give the advantage to?
I think I kind of alluded to it last segment. I give it to Arkansas. I think when you look at the receivers and CJ O'Grady, which I think is that Weapon X when you're talking about our offensive plan and how teams prepare for Arkansas, I think it starts with CJ O'Grady and the backfield. I won't just say Devoir Whaley or Rakeem. I think just that entire backfield. When you have that combination of that backfield with CJ O'Grady plus the group of the young receivers, man, that's a dangerous threat. We talked about it all season, how if the line can just play a mediocre game, we have such a high level play at these skill positions that they're going to make up for that lack of. So again, I definitely have to give it to Arkansas from an offensive. If I had to say whose defense and offense is more deadly, I have to say Arkansas's offense, and that's even the more reason why I'm expecting a 30 to 40-point game.
Yeah, I think you'll see a lot more of the playbook. I think you'll see more RPOs from Ben Hicks. I think when the play breaks down, he'll be less likely to stick in that pocket and start trying to pick up some yardage, because when you have a quarterback that can scramble and do RPOs, it opens up even more offensively, because he becomes another running back. I think it's going to be real imperative that Arkansas establishes their run game, with that being Devoir, Rakeem, Chase, and possibly if you can get the true freshman in, Monte Spivey. I think that's something you're going to have to really, really look at. But I think they're going to make a conscious effort to really get Cheyenne O'Grady involved early in the ball game offensively, because I think if you have to account for Cheyenne up the seams with 2 or 3 guys, then you're going to be able to get out on the edges. And I think when you have matchups that work in the favor with Trey Knox or Traylon or Mike Woods, another big receiver that Arkansas has, Corlin Jackson comes to mind. I think if they can get those numbers right, because I'm always a believer, Demetrius, you have to be good in the box to be good over the top. And what I mean by that, when you have a running back that's really picking up those yards and they've established the running game, you bring people down in that box. Now they're going to have to put 8 in that box. You leave a lot of one-on-one matchups. And for the size of the big wide receivers that Arkansas have, I think then that's when you're able to do your biggest damage.
I have to agree. I think I don't know. I really don't know how Ole Miss's offense is really going to play against Arkansas, because I honestly feel that Arkansas' defensive line is better than Memphis. I think altogether they may have a better program of where they're sitting at and how they played last week. But I think if I had a piece of paper and I looked at the names that's on Arkansas and the name that's on Memphis, I would have to give it to Arkansas. So again, I'm still expecting Arkansas's defensive line to really cause a lot of havoc for Ole Miss, and it's a young quarterback. And I think Chief, again, I have been asking him about exotic blitzes and exotic mismatches and disguising some things due to the lack of size that we have on defense. And I think this is going to be the game that we actually see it and see it work if used right.
It's going to be real imperative that Arkansas locates the 2 middle linebackers for the Ole Miss defense, and Lakia Henry, and also to Momo Sanogo. These 2 guys will make plays. I had a chance to watch the Memphis game. Lakia Henry, the former recruit Arkansas was trying to get here last year, chose to go to Ole Miss. When you see this man, sideline to sideline ability, and it seems like to me he gets. And I agree with what Chad said in his post in his media day availability with us yesterday. I believe this guy gets faster as he gets closer to the contact and to the ball carrier. So those 2 you're gonna have to account for. You can't have those 2 linebackers have really, really big games, because if they're having if they're doing a lot of tackling, you hope it's down. It's in the second level, about 8-9 yards down. But those are going to be the 2 guys that I feel going into the game offensively that Arkansas is going to have to account for and make sure that they aren't as disruptive as they're capable of, Demetrius.
I agree. I'm just ready to see it play, because a lot of people, again, felt that Arkansas should have won last year. So this is going to be the game that they have the chance to make it up and say, okay, we lost last year due to injuries, because everybody's going to be 100% this week. We don't have any excuses. We can't say we're missing somebody that we need. So, again, I think this is going to be a huge, huge game from Chad. And not only Chad, just the entire staff, because I'm really holding a lot of rank and pressure on these guys just due to the fact what I saw last week. And I think if Chad really wants to calm down his fan base, because his fan base is so up and down right now. Anything they're ready to complain and groan and mumble, which I'm not saying they don't have a reason to do that and complain and not show up to the game. But I think if Chad really wants to turn that page and say, okay, we're trying to be one Razorback. We're trying to be, this is the new Razorback. Don't compare us to the old coaching staff. He has to win this game, because if he doesn't win this game, it's gonna be hard, because the schedule only gets tougher after this game.
Well, we're gonna step away real quick, and we've got a special guest coming up, Andrew Alexander of Crew Do Drew podcast, covers all SEC, covers the LSU Tigers, also the New Orleans Saints. But we're going to talk a little Bayou Bengals and Clemson, or Texas. I'm so sorry. They're at ATX. We'll be talking to Andrew here shortly when we come back. It's on the hill on KDSJ 479. Back in a moment.
Anticipate, you're going to need them at some point.
We are. We anticipated playing a lot of guys last week, and the game just didn't work out that way, and that's part of it. But they continue to be focused and locked in, and good practice reps. They're being developed, and we're going to need them this year.
Before last week, SJ posted some on Twitter about the Dat Wood Award. Could you tell us a little bit about that? And then also, did y'all give it out after the Florida State games?
We did. Sosa won that award. It kind of exemplifies, not just the player of the game, but it's someone that gives that extra effort. It goes a little bit further and a little bit harder than everyone else. And, in critical situations, and maybe creates a big play for us. And it was Sosa. It was Sosa on the quarterback scramble. And so that's what that award will be given out each week. You'd like to give it to every phase of the offense, defense, and special teams, but it just went to Sosa this past week.
You actually give out.
Welcome back. It's our Thursday edition of On the Hill with Pat Jenkins Sports Talk Radio. And once again, real quick, before we get on to our featured segment with Andrew Alexander of Crew Do Drew podcast, I want to give a shout out to all our sponsors, Lindsay and Associates, with an office location in Fayetteville, an office location also too in Rogers. Locomotion, it's located just below the Northwest Arkansas Mall in Fayetteville. Corey Beck's Custom Painting, commercial, residential, need to look good. Call Corey Beck. I'm sure you'll be very, very pleased. And our last sponsor, KDK's Chicken, located at 989 Razorback Road. And like they say, it's not your mama's. Go down and see Kathy and Keith and get you a nice plate of that love. You'll definitely love the food. But we want to move on to our featured guest, as LSU will be taking the road trip down to the ATX this Saturday to play another top 10 matchup in the Texas Longhorns. And we used to have this guy on inside the trenches, but he's moved on to bigger and better things. And he's doing his own podcast called Crew Dude Drew. Andrew Alexander. Welcome to the Hill, my man.
Thanks for having me on. Happy to be here.
Let's get into it, Drew. You cover a multitude of college football. I want to talk to you as you cover the LSU Tigers down there in the New Orleans area. Talk about this big ball game, top 10 matchup. I believe one of two Big Ten big matchups in college football, where the SEC is involved, the other being A&M Clemson. Talk about this one first. Texas and LSU. What must the Tigers do when they make their way down to Austin to come away with a big victory?
Well, this is a massive, juicy matchup for both teams. The narrative of Texas is back has been percolating ever since Tom Herman showed up in Austin. They seem to be moving in a great direction last year. Despite losing 4 games, they still beat Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. Probably a disinterested Georgia team. Right. And on the other side, you have LSU, who they fired their coach, Les Miles, in 2016, and Ed Ogeron has been trying to sort of rebuild and put the Tigers in his own image the past few years. Had a hiccup in year 1, losing to Troy, losing by 30 to Mississippi State. But slowly but surely, they've gotten back up to a higher level. They made their own New Year's Six Bowl last year. They beat UCF in the Fiesta Bowl. And the funny thing was that LSU, back when they were looking for a replacement in 2016, wanted Tom Herman. He was the guy. And it was kind of the 11th hour year, like that Thanksgiving kind of game with Texas A&M and LSU, where basically in one fell swoop, Herman denies LSU and goes to Texas, and LSU gets Ed Ogeron. And so these two teams have been on this collision course for the past couple seasons, and they'll have this year and next year in Austin whenever the Longhorns make the return trip. But this game is all about the two quarterbacks. You've got everyone's favorite Heisman dark horse in Sam Ehlinger. He accounted for 41 touchdowns last year. He's kind of made in the image of Tim Tebow, Dak Prescott, Cam Newton, in that he's a gigantic quarterback who can run, who can throw. Right. He's like 6'3", like 240. I mean, he is their running threat. They are kind of depleted at running back right now. They only have one real running back with a lot of experience. Their second string guy went down. He'll be down for at least this game and several others after that. They're replacing offensive line, defensive line depth. So there's a lot of question marks around Texas and LSU. They both played their tune-up cupcake game before this, last week. So Sam Ehlinger is the guy to watch out for. If LSU can contain him, if LSU, especially in the red zone, and prevent him and make him throw, make him pass into that vaunted secondary that the Tigers have, then it's going to be tough for the Longhorns. And the same way for LSU. Joe Burrow, this is really his second year playing, true full year playing college football as a starter. He transfers last year from Ohio State to LSU in this middle of the summer and finally got acclimated to the second half of the season. Last week against Georgia Southern, and I understand it was Georgia Southern, but he threw for 5 touchdown passes in basically 2 quarters, which tied the record for most touchdown passes by an LSU quarterback in a game. But LSU's offense just looked radically different. Instead of getting, from the 5-yard line, they're throwing screen passes, or they're throwing, they're emulating the New Orleans Saints, and that's because they have a new pass game coordinator who came from the New Orleans Saints, and Joe Brady, a guy who has been a disciple of Sean Payton, who obviously, if you're familiar with the Saints, he's head coach of the Saints, Drew Brees' mentor, all that good stuff. But they hired this guy, Joe Brady. He's a young guy. He's under 30 years old, and he's working with the offensive coordinator, Steve Ensminger, and so they're doing more dynamic things. They're not just the ground and pound LSU of old. They're throwing the ball, getting the ball in space. They're spacing out they threw it to 14 different guys last week. They got it to 5 different running backs. They threw it to 3 different tight ends. So this is a radically dynamic new LSU offense that we haven't seen. Now, was that fool's gold, or can that be replicated against a big team like Texas? This is the top 10 matchup for LSU. And it's so important for LSU especially because they probably cannot afford another hiccup along the way. And they have a much tougher schedule going in. They have to play at Alabama. They host Auburn, Florida, Texas A&M, all teams that are currently in the top 15. They have a more of a gauntlet, not quite a gauntlet, but more of a gauntlet than Texas, who could conceivably lose this game, but still win the Big 12, beat Oklahoma probably twice, and probably get into the college football playoff. But LSU, you've got to win this game. This is a game not just for your potential college football playoff implications, but also just that makes sure your fan base is happy and up and at 'em and enthusiastic for the rest of the year. Because I'm telling you, they have another rental win next week in Northwestern State on the 14th, and the stadium's not going to be quite as full if LSU's coming back from Texas with their tail between their legs.
When you looked at that offense, I know LSU had talked about it for so many years. Coach Joe had talked about implementing a very, very consistent passing game. He goes and gets the offensive play caller from the Saints. He comes in and just right off the bat, you could see through watching that game, it was a real comfortable Joe Morrow and it was even more to be able to see that wide receiver core. They're young, but I mean, one of the more talented receiving corps in the conference and as well as in all of college football. Talk about how excited those guys are and the fan base to be able to realize that maybe they are, they do have a chance this year to be that balanced offense that they, so long for over the course of time.
Yeah, I think the key phrase is cautious optimism for sure, because you're right. They have LSU at their Les Miles or now at Ogeron promised for so many years that they wanted to, as college football offenses changed, they said they wanted to modernize. They wanted to add the spread offense, some more RPO, make it more dynamic, like you're seeing a lot of times. And a lot of that they came down to not necessarily having the right coordinator, but not necessarily having the right quarterback either.
Right.
And it seems like they found a good pairing with Joe Burrow and then this dual-headed monster offensive coordinator with Steven Zminger and Joe Brady, the guy from the Saints. So there's the sneaky secret is that LSU in Louisiana as a state, they produce a ton of great running backs and wide receivers.
Right.
And typically you've seen the running backs, a la Leonard Fournette or Darius Geis in recent years. But guys like Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry, they are also LSU alums. So LSU has always been able to find these guys throughout Louisiana. The problem is they haven't necessarily always utilized them.
Right.
And sometimes these guys have a better pro career into a collegiate career. And people are like, oh, wow, who is this guy? Who's this Odell Beckham dude? I had no clue how amazing he was. And so it's fantastic to see because LSU has the talent, and Ogeron has been recruiting this talent the past few years, kind of brought recruiting back to where LSU had expected it to be. And some of these guys are young. I mean, LSU does have their lead running back currently is Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He is a junior. And their lead receiver is Justin Jefferson. He is a junior. But the guy who got the first touchdown last week, Jamar Chase, that's a sophomore. A guy who got 3 touchdowns last week, Terrace Marshall, that's a sophomore. You had 2 freshman running backs getting play in there. You had a sophomore running back. You had, tight ends who aren't necessarily young, but it's their first year to start or it's their first year after a transfer. So there's a ton of young, vibrant talent. And LSU's going to get their left tackle back, Sadiq Charles, for this week. He was suspended in week 1. They're going to get their middle linebacker back, and Michael Divinity. He was also suspended week 1. They missed some leadership. And the big question mark for LSU's offense is definitely the offensive line. Is it deep enough? Is it consistent enough? Can that unit be cohesive enough? Because last year, guys were getting hurt, guys were getting suspended, and they sort of had to patchwork it together. There was times like when they lost to Florida where they gave up like nearly 10 sacks and Joe Burrow was running for his life. My hope is that they've designed an offense to where if that were to happen, they can still be able to function. That if they're not going to be running the ball 3 yards in the cloud of dust this year, then the offensive line is more important for pass blocking than necessarily run blocking. Because there's times in the past where LSU has not been able to open up a hole in some of these crucial SEC games, whether it's on the road or against a big boy like Alabama or Auburn, sometimes even against Arkansas. And so it's been tough. That's the integral part. It's this offensive line ready to mesh and go up against the big boys of Texas. And so that's a fun border war we're going to have. It's a fun Herman versus Ed Ogeron. It's going to be great.
Talking with Andrew Alexander of Crew Do Drew podcast, the host of Crew Do Drew's podcast. I want to flip to the defensive side of the ball because I think this is the matchup that's really going to determine this football game. Coach Aranda and that defense versus the Texas offense. We all know about Texas. Great receivers, a Heisman candidate at quarterback. But I think the kind of like Dallas with Ezekiel, the straw that stirs has to be Keontae Ingram. How important is it for the defensive line at LSU to step in and be able to control that line of scrimmage on Saturday?
Well, it's extremely important. And you mentioned Keontae Ingram. He's a guy that was kind of banged up in the offseason. He is their lead running back. So it's really the rushes you're going to see on Saturday night will be from Ingram and Ellinger, the quarterback, because Whittington, the backup, is now hurt. Texas is replacing, I think, 3 or 4 starters on the offensive line. So they have some new blood that they're trying to work in as well. And so this LSU defensive line is very seasoned. Ed Ogeron has done a great job building up depth because before he became the coach, he was the defensive line coach and the head recruiter. So he has been working. I mean, he's been filling all these staples throughout the entire team for a while now. It wasn't just the past 3 years. And so he's finally got some great defensive line depth. He had some key juniors come back as seniors. It's guys like Rashard Lawrence. It's guys like Brendan Fehoko. That's guys like Glenn Logan.
Right.
And then the biggest return from last year is a guy that was supposed to be and still potentially could be a really insane pass rusher. A guy coming off the edge and Claydion Chason. He tore his ACL in the very first game of the season last year against Miami as a sophomore. He's back this year. He is one of the he was given the number 18 jersey at LSU, which means you're of high character, you're a great leader, you're a great player. So that was impressive to see. He looked nasty in week 1. He's a guy that can run, come off the edge, attack the quarterback at will, but also he drops back into coverage and covers some of these tight ends and even some of the larger receivers, possession receivers. So he's a guy to look out for. I think number 18 will be all over the field. And then, like I said, they have impact players at all 3 levels. In your linebacking core, you've got Jacob Phillips, who was kind of Devin White's mini-me last year. Right. You've got Michael Divinity, who's returning back from his suspension, but he is a senior now. And you have Patrick Queen, who's also a junior. So there's 3 upperclassmen linebackers who have a ton of experience that are anchoring that core right there, that are hoping to, in some ways replicate what the Devin White effect. And there's very few things that Devin White did. He won the Buckets Award last year. He was a top 5 draft pick. And he was Mr. Everything for LSU. And those 3 guys together are now hoping to become sort of the Mr. Everything unit. And then obviously LSU is known as DBU, and that secondary is quite vaunted, led by All-American safety Grant Delpit. And on the corners you have Christian Fulton, who was also given a lot of preseason accolades. Right. The key defensive, I won't say it's weakness, but it could be a weakness out of inexperience, is that likely on the opposite side of Christian Fulton, you got a true freshman cornerback in Derek Stingley. He was the number 1 player in the nation, I think, at least in Rivals. So one of the top recruits coming in. He started last year. Started last week. He's also a punt returner. So if there is a weakness for LSU's defense, in that secondary, I should say, it potentially could be the youngster who's only playing in his second game. And to have your second game be on a true road game in Texas, that's pretty big. So I would look for Ellinger to try to attack Derek Stingley, the youngster, pretty often.
Drew, I got about a minute left, and I know you got some prior other obligations, but real quick, last question: who does this game is it bigger for? Is it bigger for the SEC or is it bigger for the Big 12 when this game concludes tomorrow night, on Saturday night?
After last week, I would say it's much bigger for the SEC. Last week was an absolute embarrassment for the bottom half of the league. Fortunately, Auburn salvaged it. And A&M's not going to win against Clemson, so the SEC has to split those matchups with the ACC and the Big 12. So I think it's huge for LSU, huge for the SEC. They got to do it if they want to keep that number 1 crown as best conference.
He's Andrew Alexander, host of the Crew Do Drew podcast. Be sure and check him out. But as always, look forward to catching up with you sometime next week if your schedule permits. But now, Drew, thanks for taking time out here on the Hill.
Thanks for having me, guys. Have a great week.
That was Andrew Alexander. We're going to play a real quick clip of Cameron Curl, junior safety. He's going to preview a little of the Ole Miss game coming up and talk a little bit of the younger guys. And then we'll come back and wrap this thing up. This is On the Hill with Pat Jenkins on KDSJ 479. Back in a moment.
Put him in. I feel like he's going to put him in.
Obviously, different quarterback for Ole Miss this year. What have you seen out there, Nick?
He's a young guy, but he's talented. He can run and he can throw the ball. I feel like we seen film, and they got some young receivers, but I feel like they got a good connection between each other.
Yeah, playing in that SEC game this early in the season, how big is it? It's obviously been a while since Arkansas won an SEC game. As a matter of fact, I think the last time was down there in Oxford 2 years ago.
Well, I feel we know it's going to be a big game. This game really can set the tone for both of our seasons. Really, so we know that this game this week we're going to have to turn it up a notch so we can go down there and beat them.
The last few games have been pretty wild, high-scoring games, but the way you guys played the other day and the way their defense played, it looks like it might be kind of a defensive game. What are you anticipating from it?
Yeah, it might be, but it might be high-scoring. You never know, really. Arkansas Ole Miss is always a crazy game. Like my freshman year, we came back down a lot, and then last year they came back down a lot. So you never really know.
You obviously didn't get to play at the end of last year. Just how do you think that helped you maybe grow up and turn into the player you want to be?
I feel like it helped me mature a lot. You always got to learn from your mistakes. And after that, Coach Moore told me, at this season that I'm going to have to be more of a leader. So after that game, after that happened, it just really matured me to know that I got to be that guy for the defense.
I guess you started.
Welcome back. We're back here with On the Hill Pat Jenkins Sports Talk Radio on KDSJ 479. Real quick, want to give a shout out once again to our sponsors, Lindsay and Associates, Locomotion, Corey Beck's Custom Painting, and KDK's Chicken. And we're coming back in off of junior safety Cameron Curl, talking a little bit more Ole Miss. I mean, man, the more we talk about this, Demetrius, the game gets bigger and bigger and bigger. I mean, I think you said it best. It's really big for Coach Mo in year 2, and it's really big, I think, more so for recruiting. With Arkansas trying to get into the Mississippi area and get kids, you have KJ Jefferson comes to mind, a young man, and they're going to continuously recruit the Mississippi area, the Memphis area. I think with that, because Memphis is only an hour and a half, Demetrius, from Oxford, Mississippi, and Arkansas Chad wants to get in to the Memphis area and put his footprint. Just picked up a young man at Central and Darian Turner. There's a lot of recruiting implications, I believe, that will come out of this ball game. With Arkansas recruiting Amari Thomas, Bryson. There's multiple kids. Trey McDonald, all those guys. Jabari Small, who I believe committed to Ole Miss. And that Memphis area is kind of the the territory of Ole Miss, Demetrius. So I mean, it has to be real big, don't you think, recruiting wise, when they step on the field. There's going to be a lot of kids with their eyes on this ball game. Yeah,
I think it's just more than just the recruits that you're trying to bring in. I think it's big for the recruits that you already have here, but currently playing that are only freshmen. When you look at where we are as a program, and that's why I say this game is so important. You can't afford to lose this game because you're going to have some of those seniors potentially bring back some of those same things that you got rid of in the summer, because they're going to go back to that same type of mindset. They're going to go back and revert to some of the same things that they were doing last year. And that's why I say Chad Morris has to win this group over through this game. They have to win it through coaching. It can't be they lose this game from a coaching aspect. It has to be executed right, and this is so crucial. I'm telling you, if they can win this game, Chad Morris would eliminate a lot of pressure from the fan base, and I think it's going to give him the comfortability to really relax more, and he can, because we all know they're not going to go undefeated. So it gives him the room. It gives him room to lose some of those games that we know he's not ready to compete in yet.
Yeah, if he gets this game, and I think Arkansas should get this game. I'm not chilling my picks yet. I'll do that on tomorrow's show, the 8th. But, I mean, this is just real big. I think just to get your first SEC conference win, you went 2-10, 0-8. I believe you lost your last 10 games. No, I think you lost your last 7 games of last year. And like I said, going 0-8, and with Arkansas having the bad taste in their mouth when it comes to SEC play, I mean, to get off and get this first one under your belt, to be able to go on the road with such a young football team, it can only serve as, like I said, something that could catapult this football team into doing really, really big things. I'm still going to continue to say Arkansas is going to beat someone they're not supposed to beat, but Ole Miss is a game that you figure you should go in and take care of. I know it's on the road, but you have to also think 2 years ago, Arkansas went down to Ole Miss, trailed by 30. Unfortunately, luckily was able to come back on a Connor Limpert game-winning field goal. I just think all the factors. I think special teams also too, Demetrius, is going to play a big factor in this ball game on Saturday. But that's going to wrap it up. I think we're going to get on out of here. We got a few things that we have to go take care of. Also, too, want everyone to know if you can tune in tomorrow on FM 106.1 and tune in for our live play-by-play broadcast of the Fayetteville Bulldogs as they travel to Owasso, Oklahoma to take on the Owasso Rams. Going to be quite the ball game. We will come on with the pregame show. We'll be on at 7 p.m. with kickoff at 7:30. But you can catch my play-by-play with myself and Anthony Hicks on the call at 7:30 game time, and you can catch that on FM 106.1 KRRD. Just want to make a note for those that aren't going to be able to make the trip over to Owasso. But for my producer, Demetrius Johnson, for my special guest, Andrew Alexander of Crew Do Drew Podcast, and for myself, you know what tomorrow is. It's the A, and it's time to give it to you like nobody else can. That's going to wrap it up today. It's On the Hill with Pat Jenkins on KDSJ 479. You guys have a blessed one, and let's get it.